The howl pierced the night like a blade through flesh. I froze, my breath caught in my throat as the sound echoed through the ancient pines surrounding me. This wasn't the mournful cry of a normal wolf. No, this was something primal, something wrong. My flashlight beam trembled across the forest floor as blood dripped from the gash in my forearm. 3 hours ago, I'd been sitting comfortably by a campfire with my hiking buddies. Now I was alone, lost in the depths of Oregon's Cascade Mountains, with something hunting me through the mist. My name is Xavier Blackwood, though names won't matter much if I don't survive until dawn. I'm a wildlife photographer from Portland who came to document the rumored resurgence of gray wolves in this region. Instead, I found something far more ancient and terrifying. The fog rolled between the massive tree trunks like ghostly fingers, obscuring everything beyond 20 feet. Somewhere in that murky darkness, twigs snapped and undergrowth rustled. It was getting closer. I pressed my back against a massive Douglas fir, trying to quiet my ragged breathing. The cut on my arm throbbed mercilessly, the metallic scent of my own blood hanging in the damp air. It would smell that. It would find me. 3 days earlier, I'd arrived in the small logging town of Ravens Creek with my friends Derek and Mia. The locals had been oddly tight-lipped about the forests surrounding Mount Hood's western slope. When we mentioned camping near Blackwater Ridge, the old bartender at the Howling Timber had simply shaken his head. "Full moon's coming," he'd muttered, wiping down the scarred wooden counter. "Bad things happen in those woods during the full moon." We'd laughed it off as small-town superstition. I wish to God we'd listened. The first night had been uneventful. We'd set up camp in a clearing near Blackwater Creek, roasted marshmallows, shared ghost stories. Derek had been in the middle of a particularly gruesome tale about local disappearances when we heard the first howl. It had sounded distant then, almost beautiful in its loneliness. "See? Wolves are coming back," I'd said excitedly, already planning where to set up my photography blind the next day. The second night, we found the first body. It had once been a hiker, judging by the shredded remains of a North Face jacket and the high-end boots still laced to feet that were now separated from the rest of him. What remained didn't look like the work of any predator I'd ever studied. The torso had been ripped open, organs removed with almost surgical precision, yet the face remained untouched, frozen in an expression of pure terror. Mia had vomited into the underbrush, while Derek frantically tried to get a signal on his satellite phone. I just stared, my photographer's eye noting details my mind refused to process. The way the rib cage had been cracked open from the front, the strange, elongated bite marks on the thighs, the complete absence of blood despite the catastrophic wounds. "Something drained him," I'd whispered, more to myself than the others. That night, we'd abandoned our tents to huddle together in Derek's SUV, doors locked, windows up. None of us slept. The howling had started again around midnight, closer this time. Multiple voices joining in a terrible chorus that seemed to surround our campsite. "Wolves don't behave like this," I'd insisted, clutching my camera like a talisman. "They avoid humans. They don't hunt us." "Those aren't wolves," Mia had whispered, her eyes wide in the dashboard lights as Derek continued to try his phone. "Did you see those tracks by the creek? What wolf has paws that size?" Another crash in the underbrush jerked me back to the present. Whatever was tracking me had circled around, approaching from a different direction now. Clever. I fumbled with my jacket pocket, pulling out the small canister of bear spray. A pathetic defense against what I'd glimpsed tearing Derek apart back at our destroyed vehicle. The memory flashed unbidden. Massive shoulders bursting through the SUV's windshield, impossibly long claws raking across Derek's chest as he screamed. The creature had moved with terrible speed, darkness and fog obscuring its features. But what I'd seen in those brief moments when lightning illuminated the clearing had burned itself into my brain. A wolf's head atop a body that stood like a man. Matted fur slick with blood. Eyes that held not animal instinct, but human intelligence. Mia had been dragged away into the darkness, her screams cut short with a wet, gurgling sound that still echoed in my ears. I'd run, blind with panic, crashing through the underbrush until I'd fallen down a ravine, gashing my arm on a jagged rock. The wound might have saved my life temporarily. I'd used the flowing creek at the bottom to mask my scent, wading upstream for nearly a mile before climbing back onto the forest floor. But now as midnight approached and the full moon occasionally broke through the racing clouds overhead, I knew it had found me again. Another howl, this one so close it rattled my teeth. It was followed by a low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I know what you are," I called out, surprising myself with my own boldness. Death seemed inevitable now. I just wanted understanding before the end. What I don't know is why. Silence fell over the forest. Even the night insects ceased their chirping. The mist swirled and parted directly ahead of me, and it stepped into the small clearing. In the silvery moonlight, the creature stood fully upright, nearly 8 feet tall. Its massive chest heaved with each breath, steam curling from a muzzle filled with yellowed fangs. But it was the eyes that held me. Amber irises surrounding vertical pupils, filled with an intelligence that no animal should possess. "You speak to me?" The voice was guttural, a horrifying mixture of growls and distinctly human speech. "None have dared in many, many moons." My legs gave out, and I slid down the tree trunk to sit on the damp forest floor. The monster could have closed the distance between us in a single bound, but instead it cocked its head curiously. "You're real," I whispered. "A werewolf, actually real." The creature's muzzle contorted in what might have been a smile. "The old ones called us Wendog. The settlers named us Werewolf. Names are meaningless. I am hunger. I am the night's justice." "Justice?" I spat, anger temporarily overriding fear. "You murdered my friends, tore them apart like they were nothing." The werewolf took a step forward, its massive, clawed foot crushing a fallen branch. "Your friend with the metal stick killed 3 of my cubs yesterday, shot them for sport while they played by the river bend." My blood ran cold. Derek had brought his hunting rifle despite this being a photography trip. He'd disappeared for several hours the previous day, returning subdued, but claiming he'd seen nothing worth shooting. I didn't know," I stammered. "Yet you ran with him, broke bread with him. His sin is your sin." The creature's voice dropped to a growl. "But you carry no weapon except that which captures images. You did not join in his killing." A tiny spark of hope flared in my chest. "I'm a photographer. I document wildlife. I don't harm it. I would never have allowed him to shoot wolf cubs if I'd known." The werewolf's massive chest expanded as it inhaled deeply, scenting me. "Your fear speaks truth, but blood must answer blood. The old laws demand it." "Please," I begged, not ashamed of the tears now running down my face. "I have a daughter. She's only 10. Her mother died last year. She has no one else." Something flickered in those inhuman eyes. Recognition, perhaps even compassion. The creature took another step forward, now looming directly over me. I could smell its breath. Not the rotting meat stench I expected, but something wild and earthy, like pine sap and mountain air. "The old laws offer another path," it rumbled. "Life for life, protection for protection." "What do you mean?" I asked, hardly daring to breathe. The werewolf crouched, bringing its terrifying face level with mine. "Your kind hunts my kind to extinction. The forests shrink. The hills are carved open for their stones. Soon there will be nowhere left for us to run." "You want conservation?" I asked incredulously. The creature snarled, revealing rows of dagger-like teeth. "I want survival. You will be our voice. Tell your kind of us, not as monsters, but as guardians of these ancient woods. Warn them that we protect what is ours, that we answer blood with blood." "They'll never believe me," I whispered. "Show them," the werewolf growled, gesturing to my camera, which lay broken several feet away. "Your camera is destroyed, but there are others. Return with proof. Mark our boundaries. Keep your kind from our hunting grounds. And if I do this, you'll let me live?" The werewolf rose to its full height again, silver moonlight gleaming on its blood-matted fur. "You bear our mark already," it gestured to the gash on my arm. "The blood that flows from wolf-made wounds carries our essence. When the full moon rises, you will understand our hunger, our power. You will be between worlds, not fully beast, but no longer merely man. Horror washed over me as understanding dawned. You've infected me. I have given you gift and burden both. You will live among your kind as our emissary. When the moon swells, you will know our struggle. This is our covenant. Serve as our voice, and I will teach you to control the change. Betray us, and the beast within will consume you and all you love. The creature turned to leave, then paused, looking back over its massive shoulder. 3 nights hence, return to this place. Come alone. Your first change approaches, and without guidance, you will become what you fear most. With that, it bounded away into the mist, a shadow swallowed by deeper shadows. I sat there until dawn broke, my mind reeling. As first light filtered through the canopy, I found my way back to the logging road. A trucker spotted me stumbling along the shoulder and drove me to the nearest hospital. I told the authorities a simplified version of events: wild animal attack, friends killed, got lost in the woods. They found what remained of Derek and Mia, attributing their deaths to a bear attack. The wound on my arm healed with unnatural speed, leaving a silvery crescent scar. I've noticed other changes too. Scents I never detected before. Sounds so distant they shouldn't be audible. A restlessness that grows as the moon waxes toward full. Tonight, I return to the forest as promised. I don't know if I'm making a deal with the devil or finding a path to redemption. All I know is that the creature was right about one thing. These ancient forests need protection. Perhaps it takes a monster to fight for a wilderness that civilization seems determined to destroy. I look at my daughter sleeping peacefully in the back seat as I drive toward Ravens Creek. I told her we're going on a photography adventure. In a way, that's true. I've invested in the best equipment I could find. If I'm to be the voice for these creatures, I'll need evidence. The moon rises over the mountains ahead, not quite full, but getting closer. I feel it pulling at something deep inside me, awakening instincts that both terrify and exhilarate. Whatever I become in the coming nights, I make this vow. I will protect my daughter. I will honor my agreement with the beast of Blackwater Ridge. And I will find a way to exist between two worlds, because the alternative is unthinkable. The forest awaits, dark and primal. And somewhere within its misty depths, my new master is watching. The drive back to Ravens Creek felt like entering another world. The small logging town appeared unchanged. The same weathered storefronts, the neon beer signs glowing in the Howling Timbers windows, locals giving my city-registered SUV suspicious glances. But I saw everything differently now. I checked us into the only motel in town, a faded 2-story building with peeling paint and a flickering vacancy sign. The elderly woman at the front desk narrowed her eyes when I mentioned staying for a week. Not many folks choose to vacation here, she said, sliding a metal key across the counter. Especially not after what happened to your friends. I tensed. News travels fast. Small town, she replied with a shrug. Shame about them, but folks know better than to go wandering around Blackwater Ridge. She glanced at my sleeping daughter, whom I'd carried in from the car. Bringing a child here. Not sure that's wise, mister. We'll stay in town, I lied. Just needed to get away from the city for a bit. The woman didn't look convinced, but took my credit card anyway. Room 17, end of the hall. Moon's nearly full, she added casually. Best keep indoors after dark. In our room, I tucked Emily into one of the twin beds before unpacking my new camera equipment. Top-of-the-line Canon with night vision capabilities, multiple lenses, equipment that had cost nearly all my savings. If I was going to document the impossible, I needed the best tools available. Emily stirred as I was checking my gear. Daddy, are we there? We're at the motel, sweetheart. Get some sleep. Adventure starts tomorrow. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. Is this where you saw the wolves? I'd told her a sanitized version, that I was working on a photography project documenting the return of wolves to Oregon. Not exactly a lie, but far from the full truth. Near here, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. But we're just going to take pictures from a safe distance, okay? She nodded solemnly. At 10, Emily had already experienced more loss than any child should, with her mother's death the previous year. She'd grown up overnight, becoming serious and thoughtful in ways that sometimes broke my heart. I miss Mom, she said suddenly. I brushed her dark hair from her forehead. Me too, kiddo. She would have liked this adventure. Emily yawned and snuggled back under the covers. "Night, Daddy." "Good night, Em." After she fell asleep, I slipped outside with my satellite phone. No signal in the room, but on the second-floor walkway, I managed to get enough reception to call my sister Kate. "You did what?" she exploded after I explained where we were. "Xavier, are you insane? Your friends were just killed there." "It's for work," I said, the lie tasting bitter. "An important photo assignment. We'll be perfectly safe." "Then why did you set up that power of attorney and update your will before you left?" Kate demanded. "Don't think I didn't notice the documents you had me sign." "Just being responsible," I muttered. "Single parent and all that." "Sav," her voice softened. "What's really going on? You've been different since the attack. The doctor said you were lucky, but sometimes I wonder if something happened out there that you're not telling anyone. If she only knew." The scar on my arm seemed to burn at her words. "I'm fine, Kate, I promise. I just need to finish this project, and then maybe Emily and I will take that trip to California you've been suggesting." "Promise me you'll be careful," she said after a long pause. "Emily needs her father." "I know." I watched the nearly full moon rising over the distant mountains. "I'm doing this for her future." After ending the call, I stood there for a long time, feeling the night air against my skin. Every sense seemed heightened. I could smell pine sap from trees half a mile away, hear the scurrying of small nocturnal creatures in the underbrush beyond the parking lot. The changes were accelerating. Back in the room, I laid out tomorrow's plan. I would take Emily into town during the day, show her around, maybe visit the local ranger station where I could ask some carefully worded questions about forest conservation and wolf sightings. Then I'd drop her off with a babysitter for the evening. The motel owner had recommended her granddaughter, while I made my first trip back to the meeting place. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw amber eyes glowing in the darkness. Heard that rumbling voice making demands that would change my life forever. What would happen during the full moon? Would I transform completely, lose myself to animal instinct? Would I hurt someone? Hurt Emily? The thought was unbearable. If it came to that, if I truly believed I might harm my daughter, I'd put a bullet in my own brain first. But another part of me, a growing part that I didn't recognize, was curious, eager even. The power I'd seen in that creature's movements, the freedom of its existence, something primal within me responded to that call. I finally drifted off near dawn, dreaming of running on 4 legs through moonlit forests. Wind in my fur, the night alive with scents and sounds no human was meant to experience. The next day passed in a blur of forced normalcy. Emily and I ate breakfast at the town's only diner, where locals stared openly at us. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, set down our pancakes with a frown. "You're the guy, aren't you? The one who survived?" I nodded uncomfortably. "Just passing through again, working on a photography project." "About what happened?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "There's been talk. Animal attacks increasing. Livestock found torn apart. Rangers found tracks they can't identify." Emily was occupied with drowning her pancakes in syrup, but I still kept my voice low. "What kind of tracks?" The waitress glanced around nervously. "Too big for wolf, they say. Walking pattern all wrong too. Sometimes on 4 legs, sometimes on 2. A chill ran down my spine. Who would I talk to about this? Officially, I mean. Ranger McCoy, stationed at the edge of town, but he's not one for tall tales. She studied my face. "You saw something out there, didn't you? Something that wasn't no ordinary animal." I didn't answer, but I didn't need to. She nodded knowingly. "Thought so. Grandfather was Nez Perce. He had stories about shapeshifters in these mountains. Said they were here long before white settlers arrived." She refilled my coffee cup. "Be careful where you point that camera, mister. Some things don't like having their picture taken." After breakfast, I dropped Emily off with the babysitter, a college student home for summer break who seemed responsible enough, with strict instructions to stay in town and keep her phone on. The drive back to Blackwater Ridge was a journey into increasing isolation. Paved roads gave way to gravel, then to rutted Forest Service tracks. The afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow that seemed alive with movement. I parked at the same trailhead where our ill-fated camping trip had begun. The police tape was still visible, fluttering from trees surrounding what had been our campsite. I avoided that area, instead hiking deeper into the forest, toward the clearing where I'd had my encounter with the werewolf. The forest felt different in daylight, less threatening but no less ancient. These trees had stood for centuries, witnesses to a history that humans had largely forgotten. I understood now why the creature had spoken of them as sacred. I set up my camera equipment in a well-concealed blind, positioning motion-activated cameras at different angles. If anything approached tonight, I would have evidence. Part of me questioned the wisdom of this. Would capturing proof of the werewolf's existence violate our agreement? But another part knew that, without evidence, I could never hope to fulfill my role as their voice. As dusk approached, I felt a strange sensation creeping over me. My skin seemed too tight, my joints aching with a deep, persistent throb. The scar on my arm burned like a brand, and sounds became almost painfully clear. The wing beats of an owl taking flight half a mile away, the heartbeat of a rabbit frozen in fear nearby. The transformation was beginning, even though the moon hadn't yet risen. I gripped a tree trunk, breathing heavily as waves of pain washed over me. Was this what the creature had meant? Would I change fully tonight? Lose myself to the beast within? Control, I gasped, remembering the werewolf's words. It had promised to teach me control. As if summoned by my thoughts, a low growl emanated from the underbrush behind me. I turned, still hunched over in pain, to see amber eyes gleaming in the gathering darkness. "You return," the creature said, stepping into view. In the dying daylight, I could see it clearly for the first time. Massive and terrifying, yet with a strange majesty in its bearing. The matted fur was gray-black, streaked with silver, covering a body that seamlessly blended wolf and human characteristics. "And you bring your seeing machines." "Evidence," I managed to say through gritted teeth. "You wanted me to show them, to warn them." The werewolf circled my camera setup, sniffing curiously. "These capture truth?" "Images," I corrected. "What the eye sees." The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "The eye sees what it wishes. The heart knows truth." It turned its massive head toward me. "You feel the change coming?" It wasn't a question. I nodded, doubling over as another spasm racked my body. "Not yet," the werewolf said. "Not here. Follow." It turned and loped into the forest. Despite my pain, I found myself able to follow, my movements becoming strangely fluid. We traveled deeper into the wilderness than I had ever been before, ascending slopes that should have left me winded, but somehow didn't. The forest grew denser, older, the trees massive ancient sentinels that had never known the bite of a saw. Eventually, we came to a clearing high on a ridgeline. Below us stretched the vast, unbroken canopy of the forest, silvered now in the rising moonlight. The pain in my body intensified as the full moon cleared the mountain peaks. "Here," the werewolf growled. "Here you will learn what you have become." "What's happening to me?" I gasped, falling to my knees. "The blood knows." The creature circled me slowly. "Your body fights the change. The human mind fears loss of control. You must surrender to become." "I can't," I panted. "My daughter. I have to get back to her." The werewolf snarled. "The child is safe in the stone nest of humans. This night is for your learning. If you cannot master what grows within you, you will destroy what you love." The truth of those words cut through my resistance. If I couldn't control this transformation, I would become a danger to Emily. I needed to understand what I was becoming. "Tell me what to do," I said. The werewolf sat back on its haunches, suddenly looking more wolf than human despite its upright posture. "Feel the pull of the moon, the stirring in your blood. Do not fight. Guide it." I closed my eyes, focusing on the sensations coursing through my body. The pain was still there, but beneath it was something else. A wild energy that seemed to resonate with the moonlight itself. Instead of resisting, I let it flow through me. The change when it came was both more and less terrible than I had feared. My bones shifted and reformed, muscles stretching and strengthening. Fur sprouted from my skin, not in a full coat like the creature before me, but in patches along my arms and back. My face elongated partially into a muzzle, teeth sharpening into points. Claws extended from fingers that remained recognizably human. When it finished, I stood hunched over, breathing heavily. Looking down at my transformed body, I realized I had become something between human and wolf, a partial transformation that left me with heightened senses and strength, but still with my human mind intact. "Half changed," the werewolf observed. "The first turning is seldom complete, but you maintain consciousness. This is unusual." I flexed my clawed hands, marveling at how natural they felt. Is this what I'll become each full moon? The blood runs stronger in some than others. Those bitten rather than born often transform partially at first. With time, you will either master the full change or learn to suppress it entirely. The creature's voice rumbled with what sounded almost like approval. "You did not lose yourself to madness. This suggests strength of will. Can I change back?" "At will, with practice. The moon compels but does not command those with mastery." The werewolf rose to its full height. "Now you must learn to move as we move, to hunt as we hunt." What followed was the strangest night of my life. The ancient werewolf led me through the forest, teaching me to use my transformed body, how to run on all fours when speed was needed, how to climb with my new claws, how to use my enhanced senses to track prey. We hunted deer together, the werewolf demonstrating techniques for silent stalking. When we finally brought down a buck, I was horrified to find myself salivating at the smell of fresh blood. The creature noticed my hesitation. "Eat," it commanded. "The body you now wear requires meat. Better the deer than human flesh." Revulsion warred with hunger, but eventually biological imperative won out. I fed alongside the werewolf, finding that raw venison tasted completely different through my transformed senses, rich and satisfying in ways I'd never experienced. After feeding, we ran through the moonlit forest, an exhilarating experience unlike anything I'd known as a human. My partially transformed body moved with power and grace, leaping fallen logs and scaling rocky outcroppings with ease. Near dawn, the werewolf led me back toward the ridge where we'd started. As the moon began to set, it turned to me. "The changing back will come naturally with the fading moon. Do not fight it." "Wait," I said, realizing this strange tutelage was ending. "I have questions. What are you, really? Are there others? How old are you?" The creature regarded me with those intelligent amber eyes. "I am the last of the ancient ones in these mountains. Others exist, scattered across wilderness lands, but we grow fewer as your kind multiplies." "How old?" I pressed. The werewolf made that strange laughing sound again. "I walked these forests before the first pale humans came in their wooden ships, before the first trappers cut trails through my hunting grounds." "Centuries," I breathed. "And you've been alone all this time?" Something like sadness flickered in the creature's gaze. "My mate fell to silver bullets 80 winters past. My children have gone to distant lands or perished at human hands. I remain to protect what is left of our territory." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. The werewolf seemed surprised by my empathy. "You are strange, Xavier of the humans. You fear, yet you understand. This is why you were chosen." "Chosen for what, exactly?" "To be bridgewalker, between their world and ours." The creature gazed out over the forest below. "Your kind destroys without thought, burns forests, poisons rivers, kills for sport rather than need. They must be made to understand that consequences follow, that ancient forces still guard these lands." As it spoke, I felt the transformation beginning to reverse. The fur receded, claws retracted, my face reshaping into human form. The process was surprisingly painless, like slipping out of a costume. "Will it always be this easy?" I asked, looking down at my now human hands. "The first change back is often gentle. Future transformations will depend on your mastery." The werewolf turned to leave. "Return tomorrow night. Bring your seeing machine if you must. I will show you the boundaries you must help us protect." "And my daughter? Will she be safe from what I've become?" The creature paused. "The young are sacred to us. We do not harm cubs. wolf or human. But know this, if she is with you during a full moon before you have mastered control, your human mind might not recognize her. This is why you must learn quickly. With that sobering warning, the werewolf melted into the forest, leaving me alone on the ridgeline as dawn broke over the mountains. I made my way back to my original camera setup, dismantling it quickly. The memory cards would be empty. We had gone elsewhere for my first transformation. Part of me felt relieved. I wasn't ready for anyone else to see what I was becoming. By the time I reached my vehicle, the sun was fully up. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from the babysitter. With a pang of guilt, I called her back, apologizing profusely for staying out all night and promising to return immediately. As I drove back toward town, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked the same, tired, unshaven, but human. Yet I wasn't the same at all. Something fundamental had changed within me. I had tasted what it meant to be wild, to be powerful in ways humans had forgotten. And despite all my fears, despite the danger and uncertainty ahead, some small part of me had embraced that wildness, had welcomed it. That realization terrified me more than any monster ever could. The babysitter was understandably upset when I finally returned, but a generous cash tip smoothed things over. Emily was just waking up, excited to tell me about the ice cream sundae her sitter had let her have the night before. "Did you see any wolves, Daddy?" she asked as we walked back to our motel room. I ruffled her hair. "Not yet, sweetheart, but I've found where they might be. Maybe we'll get lucky tonight." Her eyes widened. "I get to come with you tonight?" The werewolf's warning echoed in my mind. If she is with you during a full moon, before you have mastered control, your human mind might not recognize her. "Not to the deep woods," I said quickly, "but I thought maybe we could go to one of the observation points near the ranger station. They have platforms set up for wildlife viewing." This wasn't entirely a lie. I had seen such platforms on our drive-in. They might make a safe place for Emily to wait while I slipped away to meet the werewolf again. Close enough to civilization to be safe, but with a plausible connection to my cover story about photographing wolves. After breakfast and showers, I took Emily to the ranger station I'd heard about. Ranger McCoy turned out to be a weathered man in his 50s with a salt and pepper beard and suspicious eyes. When I introduced myself as a wildlife photographer working on a project about wolf reintegration, his expression darkened. "No confirmed wolf packs in this immediate area," he said curtly. "Occasional lone wolves passing through, but nothing established." "What about the recent animal attacks?" I pressed. "I heard there have been some unusual incidents." McCoy's eyes narrowed. "You with the newspapers?" "Already told them. We've had some predator activity consistent with a large bear. Nothing more exotic than that." "I was camping with friends when they were killed," I said quietly, nodding toward Emily, who was examining a display of local plants across the room. "The authorities said bear attack, but what I saw, it moved differently." The ranger studied me for a long moment. "Come with me," he finally said, leading me to a small office in the back while gesturing for Emily to stay in the main area. Once inside, he closed the door and sighed heavily. "Look, I know what the official report says. I also know what I've seen tracking whatever's out there. The problem is, what I've found doesn't make any scientific sense." "Try me," I suggested. He hesitated, then pulled open a filing cabinet, extracting a folder. "These are off the record. Personal observations, not official reports." Inside were photographs of tracks, massive paw prints unlike any normal wolf or bear. Some showed a pattern consistent with an animal running on 4 legs, while others, seemingly from the same creature, showed a bipedal gait. "Found these near where your friends were killed," McCoy said. "Along with these." He showed me more photos. Claw marks on trees, adding height of nearly 8 feet. Fur samples caught on bark that didn't match known species. A deer carcass with organs removed with near-surgical precision. "Whatever did this wasn't just killing for food," he observed. "It was ritualistic somehow." I swallowed hard, remembering the werewolf's feeding behavior. How long has this been happening? Reports go back decades, but frequency increases every few years, always around the full moon, usually after someone violates the unwritten boundaries. "Boundaries?" McCoy nodded grimly. "Local tribes had territories that were considered sacred, forbidden to outsiders. Blackwater Ridge was one such place. The old-timers around here still won't go near it, especially during full moons. He closed the folder. I can't officially acknowledge any of this. I'd lose my job, maybe worse. But if you're going back out there with cameras... He hesitated, then reached into his desk drawer and removed something wrapped in cloth. Take this. He unwrapped it to reveal a hunting knife with a gleaming silver blade. Silver? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. My grandfather was the ranger here back in the 1940s. He claimed this was the only thing that worked against what he called the Guardian of the Ridge. Probably superstitious nonsense, but he pushed it toward me. Better to have it and not need it. I stared at the knife, knowing now why the werewolf had mentioned its mate falling to silver bullets. This weapon could kill me now, too. I said, reluctantly taking it. I hope I won't need it. Back in the main area, Emily was chatting animatedly with a young female ranger about local wildlife. As we left, I secured permission to use one of the elevated observation platforms for night photography. McCoy gave me a knowing look but signed the permit. That evening, I brought Emily to the platform as planned. It was about a quarter mile from the ranger station, offering a view over a valley that local wildlife used as a corridor. I set up my camera equipment, making a show of preparing for a night of wildlife photography. Remember, we need to be very quiet, I told Emily as darkness fell. Animals won't come if they hear us. She nodded seriously, clutching her own small digital camera. I'd brought plenty of snacks, her tablet loaded with movies, in a warm sleeping bag. The platform had walls and a roof, making it a relatively comfortable place for her to wait. I need to move around a different spot, I explained, but I'll come check on you every hour, and you can call me on the radio if you need anything. The Rangers are just down the road too. I'll be fine, Dad, she said with the exasperated confidence of a 10-year-old. Go find your wolves. As moonrise approached, I felt the now familiar sensations beginning. The tightening skin, heightened senses, the scar burning on my arm. I needed to get away from Emily before the change progressed. I'm going to check that ridge, I said, pointing to a nearby hill. I'll be back in an hour. Stay here, okay? Once out of sight, I moved quickly into the forest, heading toward Blackwater Ridge. The transformation was coming faster tonight, my body seemingly more accepting of the change. By the time I reached the meeting place, I was already half transformed, running on all fours with unnatural speed. The werewolf was waiting, silhouetted against the full moon. You return. Good. Show me these boundaries, I said, my voice a growling rasp through my partially transformed vocal cords. Show me what needs protection. For the next several hours, the ancient creature led me along invisible lines through the forest, territories marked by scent that my enhanced senses could now detect. We passed sacred sites, stone circles hidden beneath centuries of forest growth, caves with wall paintings dating back thousands of years, pristine watersheds that fed the entire region. These are the veins of the earth, the werewolf explained as we stood beside a crystal-clear spring. Your kind poisons such waters without thought, not understanding that all life flows from these sources. Not all humans are destructive, I argued. Many fight to preserve wild places. Yet they lose again and again to those who see only profit in these lands. The creature dipped a massive paw into the spring, watching the ripples spread. We are the last guardians of the old balance. When we are gone, nothing will stand between your kind and complete dominion. I began to understand the weight of what the werewolf was asking of me. Not just to warn humans away from its territory, but to be an advocate for wilderness preservation on a larger scale. To use my unique position between worlds to speak for those who had no voice in human affairs. As we traveled, I discreetly activated the small action camera I'd hidden in my jacket pocket. The werewolf either didn't notice or didn't object. I was gathering my evidence, fulfilling my part of our bargain. Near dawn, as we headed back toward the area where I'd left Emily, the werewolf suddenly froze, nose raised to the wind. Hunters, it growled. Human hunters with weapons, near the place of your cub. Fear shot through me. Emily, we have to go. We raced through the forest, the werewolf moving with astonishing speed. As we approached the observation platform, I caught the scent too. Several men, gun oil, alcohol, and fear. Emily's fear. I burst into the clearing below the platform to find 3 men in hunting gear. 2 were trying to climb the ladder to the platform, while Emily had pulled it up and was screaming for them to leave her alone. "Come on down, little girl," one called in a slurred voice. "We just want to know where your daddy went. Saw some mighty strange tracks we'd like to ask him about." "Get away from my daughter," I roared, the sound more animal than human. The men spun around, raising their rifles. In the moonlight, my transformed appearance must have been terrifying. Half man, half beast, eyes reflecting light like a wild animal's. "Jesus Christ," one of the men shouted. "Shoot it!" The crack of a rifle split the night. I felt a burning sensation along my ribs as the bullet grazed me. The werewolf snarled in rage, launching itself from the shadows. What followed was chaos and screaming. I remember trying to stop the creature, to prevent bloodshed, even as my own transformed body responded to the attack with primal fury. 2 of the men fled into the forest. The third wasn't so lucky. The werewolf had him pinned, massive jaws poised for a killing bite. "No!" I shouted, grabbing the creature's massive arm. "Not in front of my daughter!" The werewolf growled but hesitated. Above us, Emily was watching in horror from the platform. "Please," I begged. "She's seeing everything." Something like understanding flickered in those amber eyes. The werewolf released the terrified hunter, who scrambled away into the darkness, leaving his weapon behind. I looked up at Emily, who stared down at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Daddy?" she whispered, recognizing me despite my transformation. "It's okay, Em," I called up, trying to sound normal despite my distorted voice. "Stay there. I'll explain everything." The werewolf melted back into the forest with a final warning growl. As it disappeared, I felt the transformation beginning to reverse, accelerated by my emotional state. By the time I climbed the ladder to the platform, I was fully human again, though my clothes were torn and bloodied. Emily threw herself into my arms, sobbing. "What happened to you? What was that thing?" I held her tightly, knowing the time for half-truths had passed. "That's a very long story, sweetheart, but we're safe now." After calming her, I gathered our equipment and led her back to the ranger station, where a startled night watchman took our report of drunk hunters harassing a child. I mentioned nothing about werewolves or transformations. That conversation would need to wait until Emily and I were alone. The next morning, I checked us out of the motel. We needed to leave Ravens Creek. The hunters would talk, suspicions would grow, and neither Emily nor I would be safe. But I knew we'd be back. I had promises to keep, to the ancient guardian of Blackwater Ridge, and to myself. As we drove away, Emily finally asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, what's happening to you?" I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, seeing the intelligence and courage in her eyes. She deserved the truth, or at least as much of it as she could understand. "I'm changing, Em, becoming something different, something that's part human and part something else." "Like a werewolf?" she asked, surprising me with her directness. I nodded slowly. "Something like that, yes." Instead of fear, her face showed curiosity. "Is it because of what happened when your friends died?" "Yes, I met the creature you saw last night. It changed me." Emily was quiet for a long moment. "Is that why we're really here? Not for wolf pictures?" "Partly," I admitted. "I needed to learn about what I'm becoming, but also because that creature asked me to help protect its home. The forests are disappearing, Em. The wild places are being destroyed. Some things that have lived there for centuries are in danger of disappearing forever. So you're going to help the werewolf?" I smiled at her simplification. "I'm going to help protect the wilderness, for all the creatures that live there, including the one you saw." She considered this seriously. "Will you turn into that thing again?" "Yes," I said honestly, "when the moon is full. But I'm learning to control it, to stay myself even when I change." "Does it hurt?" "A little, less each time." Another long silence. Then, "Can I help too?" I nearly swerved off the road. "Emily, this is dangerous. Those men last night, they were the bad guys," she interrupted. "They tried to hurt me before you even changed. The werewolf protected me too, out of the mouths of babes." She had seen through to the heart of what happened with a child's clarity. "Your mother would kill me if she knew I was involving you in this," I muttered. Emily's expression grew solemn. Mom always said we should stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Isn't that what you're doing for the forest and the werewolf? I couldn't argue with that logic. Catherine had been an environmental attorney, fighting corporate interests in court until cancer took her from us. In a strange way, I was continuing her work, albeit through very different means. We'll see, I finally said. For now, we're going home to regroup. I need to look at the footage I collected and figure out the best way to use it. And then we'll come back? I nodded. Yes, we'll come back. Over the following months, a strange new life took shape for Emily and me. I quit my regular photography job to focus on a new project, documenting endangered wilderness areas with a particular emphasis on Oregon's old-growth forests. Using some of the footage I'd captured that night, carefully edited to blur the most impossible details, I secured funding from several environmental organizations. Each full moon, we would return to the mountains. I would secure Emily in a safe location, eventually a small cabin we purchased near the edge of the protected forest, before meeting with the ancient werewolf. My transformations became more controlled, more complete. I could now shift at will, though the pull of the full moon remained strongest. The werewolf, whom I came to know as Silverfang, a name I gave him, as his true name was a complex series of howls impossible for human vocal cords, taught me the ways of his kind, their history, their purpose as guardians of the wild places. I learned that werewolves had once been numerous across North America, each pack protecting its territory from human encroachment. We did not seek to rule, Silverfang explained one night as we patrolled the boundaries of his territory, only to maintain balance, to remind humans of the power of wilderness, to be the darkness that taught them to respect what they did not understand. But with the advance of civilization, silver weapons, and the destruction of habitat, the werewolves had dwindled. Now only scattered individuals remained in the most remote regions, fighting a losing battle against extinction. I became Silverfang's voice in the human world. My photography project expanded into a documentary series, bringing attention to the threatened wilderness areas. I never explicitly revealed the existence of werewolves, but I hinted at ancient guardians and spirits of the forest that protected these lands. The imagery I captured, blurred glimpses of Silverfang, recordings of his haunting howls, the aftermath of his justice against poachers and illegal loggers, created a mystique around Blackwater Ridge that accomplished what I'd promised. It kept people away. Emily, true to her word, became my partner in this strange crusade. As she grew into her teens, she developed her mother's passion for environmental justice, combined with an acceptance of the supernatural that only someone exposed to it at a young age could maintain. She never feared what I became during the full moon, even when the transformation was complete and I ran on 4 legs through the midnight forest. "You're still my dad," she would say, "just furrier." Not everything was smooth. There were close calls, a documentary crew that ventured too deep into the territory and had to be frightened away, a logging company that secured permits to cut old-growth forest at the edge of Silverfang's domain, a group of trophy hunters who came specifically looking for the Blackwater beast after rumors spread online. The worst incident came when Emily was 16. She had been helping me set up camera traps deeper in the forest than usual when we were separated during a sudden storm. I found her hours later, injured from a fall, with hypothermia setting in. The full moon rose as I carried her back toward our cabin, triggering my transformation. Half mad with fear for her life and the primal pull of the change, I howled for Silverfang. He came swiftly, leading me to a hidden cave where ancient remedies, herbs and poultices, known only to his kind, helped save Emily's life. As dawn broke and I returned to human form, Silverfang regarded me with those ancient amber eyes. "The child is strong," he rumbled. "She carries your spirit." "She's everything to me," I said, watching Emily sleep peacefully on a bed of soft moss. "You have kept your promise, Xavier of the humans," Silverfang said. "Our territory remains protected. Your kind speaks of these forests with respect now. They create new laws to preserve the ancient trees." It was true, my campaign had helped secure expanded protection for thousands of acres surrounding Blackwater Ridge. The timber companies had been fought to a standstill by a coalition of environmental groups, indigenous tribes, and most surprisingly, local residents who had come to take pride in their mysterious, haunted forest. But our work isn't finished, I pointed out. There are other places, other wilderness areas being destroyed, and you're still alone here. Silverfang was silent for a long moment. I have lived many human lifetimes, Xavier. I have seen forests grow from seedlings to giants, then fall to your kind saws. I have witnessed the great herds dwindle, the rivers shrink, the air grow heavy with strange scents. I am tired. A chill ran through me. What are you saying? That perhaps it is time for a new guardian to watch over these lands. His amber gaze held mine, one who understands both worlds. The implication was clear. Silverfang was proposing that I take over as the guardian of Blackwater Ridge when he was gone, that I complete my transformation from reluctant victim to willing protector. I don't know if I can, I admitted. I have Emily to think about, her future, her life. The child chooses her own path, Silverfang said, nodding toward Emily, who, I now realized, was awake and listening, as all must do. That conversation marked a turning point. Over the next year, Silverfang began to prepare me more explicitly for the role of guardian. I learned every inch of the territory, every sacred site, every seasonal change of the forest. My documentary work continued, but now with a more deliberate purpose, creating a mythology around Blackwater Ridge that would ensure its protection for generations to come. Emily graduated high school and, to my mixed pride and concern, announced her intention to study environmental law, her mother's path. But unlike Catherine, Emily would do so with the knowledge that some wild places had protectors beyond human laws and regulations. I'll fight in the courts and offices, she told me. You'll fight in the forest. Between us, we'll save more wilderness than either could alone. As she left for college, I faced the reality of my future. I was now more comfortable in my werewolf form than I had ever imagined possible. The monthly transformations had become natural, even welcome, a time when I could shed human concerns and run with Silverfang through territories that had been protected for millennia. On Emily's 20th birthday, Silverfang disappeared. He left no explanation, no farewell, simply vanished into the deeper wilderness beyond even our usual range. For months I searched for him, howling into the night moon after moon, but no answer ever came. In his absence, I stepped fully into the role he had prepared me for. The legend of the Blackwater Beast evolved. Now there were tales of two creatures patrolling the ridge. Fear kept the destructive elements of humanity at bay, while my continued documentary work brought the right kind of attention to the region. Eco-tourists who stayed on marked trails, researchers who approached the old growth with reverence, locals who had learned to make a living from protecting the forest rather than exploiting it. Sometimes on the clearest nights when the full moon bathes the ridgeline in silver light, I stand where I first met Silverfang and wonder if he simply died, his ancient body finally surrendering to time, or if he journeyed to some distant wilderness where others of his kind might still exist. I'll never know, but his legacy continues through me, through Emily, and through the protected wilderness that still stands as a reminder that some places remain beyond human dominion, that the night still holds mysteries worth preserving, that there are still teeth and claws in the darkness, guarding what remains of the wild. I am Xavier Blackwood, wildlife photographer, father, and werewolf, guardian of Blackwater Ridge, the last sentinel of an ancient order. And on nights when the moon is full, if you venture too deep into the misty forests of Oregon's Cascade Mountains, you might hear my howl echoing through the ancient pines. It is both warning and reminder. Some boundaries should not be crossed. Some powers should not be challenged. Some terrors serve a purpose.